I actually have a small frog in my throat, of course, today. So that little virus that's going around kind of got my throat, of course, because I had this scheduled. So I'll try not to drive you crazy with clearing my throat, but I'm going to end up doing that a little bit. Got to find all this stuff. Is it on? Okay. You know, reading all the medical literature that I like to read, I'm sometimes amazed at what the literature says. And I'm going to have to go over that at the next lecture, because I don't think anybody reads it. So that'll be an interesting Christmas lecture. All right, next. That's me, right? Dr. Jeff is going to have a very special guest speaker. This lady lectures all over the country. Her name's Mary Tocco. It's not going to be filmed. It's going to be a big crowd. There's free admission if you make your reservations. If you have to pay at the door, it's $15. So you want to make that thing. This will be surprising for people, because she's a serious vaccine researcher. How many people saw my last lecture? She went over that, and it added a lot of interesting things to her life. And you'll see some of that at that next lecture. So it's September 19th on a Wednesday, right here. We have a newsletter you can sign up for on your online ordering, etc. diversehealthservices.com. The front staff does a great job taking care of that. Since now we have Obamacare, Time magazine has an interesting article. I want you all to start preparing how to die. Might be best to start making your arrangements if things aren't going too good. And if they are, you can still make your arrangements. I thought this was interesting because it made me think of my mother. The one day you should never go to the hospital, August 1st. It's when all the new kids arrive. And they referred to it as the killing season. There was an interesting increase in deaths on that day. This came out of the literature. I did not make this up. But I noticed that January 26th was the day my mother went to the hospital, and that wasn't exactly a good day either. So keep on your toes. Things are changing. Now, with what my mother went through, with that AFib, I had a patient Monday. We were working with this guy. His heart is an AFib. We sent him to more intelligent physicians than the one that my mother saw. And they canceled the cardioversion because they did a transthoracic echo and saw a possible clot in his atrium. So they increased his Coumadin, and they said, we'll check this in 3 or 4 weeks from now. That's how it's supposed to be done properly if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you just whack the heart and pray that you didn't turn anything loose. And this guy at this great hospital in Livonia whacked my mother and watched what happened later. And that's what happened. That's how it's supposed to be done. It's interesting, I'm working with this guy, very similar like I was working with, my mother, and he's keeping his heart strong to prepare for this cardioversion. That's how it's supposed to be done. one of the frustrating things about almost being in 32 years of practice in the year 2012, and this date right here is, what is that date right there? June 19th. Spending an entire lifetime killing things with your Purell soaps and your antibacterial and your chlorine and your antibiotics and your vaccinations and your swimming pools. They found out, which the chiropractors tried to tell you years ago, there's 10 germs helping to keep you alive for every 1 cell in your body. They found 10,000 different germ strains at all times going on inside your body. They thought you had 22,000 human genes. 22,000. When they add the different germs, that total went to 8 million. You had more germs protecting your system than you've had genes in your system. So to watch the people who've sterilized their children, and they live in a bubble, they got inhalers, they got nebulizers, they've had all their shots. Then I watch the dirty kids come in. They've always been healthier than your clean kids. And you have made a mess of your children. They had to get rid of the Purell in a number of hospitals because the germs that grew on your hand were worse than the ones you washed off. And these people come in, their hands, I have eczema. I got the little, there has to be some nerdy people out there because that's who most of you are going to work for. So get used to the geeks and the nerds because they pretty much run the businesses. And they come in and they've washed their hands to death. And they come in, I have eczema on my hands. If they have eczema on their hands, I know I got a special hand washer. And mother has spanked them ferociously should they ever exit that bathroom without washing to their elbows and down. They've sterilized their hands. They're cracked, bleeding. They got funguses and yeast growing all over them. And they've been convinced that it's eczema. It's really a sad thing to watch. What leads to compromised guts? Pretty simple. Antibiotics, chlorine, fluoride, chemicals, pollution. Stuff that everybody makes sure. I have a special guest person at my next lecture. It's an Olympian that had an interesting encounter in Oregon. Some people might have heard this. But as he was training for the Olympics, he got so sick in the swimming pools in the wintertime, he had to stop. He couldn't get well swimming in those chlorinated pools. It was a constant battle trying to keep him healthy. He had to give up the pool. I find this whole digestion thing interesting. A lot of interesting symptoms can affect the digestive tract. And I want you to see this. Everybody knows, the general stomach stuff. But they're telling you today, so goes the gut, so goes the brain. If your stomach doesn't work, your brain's not going to work. Your stomach has to work to make your brain work. Now, being in the profession for almost 32 years, I have to believe that there are actually some people who are gaining weight that don't overeat. Because everybody's going to tell you they don't overeat. To find out one of the biggest contributors to people gaining weight, this is why they use antibiotics on all the animals, because it makes them fat. And they use more antibiotics in the animals than they do in the people. And I know I get probably antibiotics eating commercial food every day at lunch. It's just something, my life doesn't really revolve around food that much. I've had a different direction trying to keep this huge practice going. And I'd like to eat better, but I'm trapped eating out every day, and I'm sure I get my fill of antibiotics, even though I'd like to think that I don't take antibiotics. Now, this commonly used drug found to promote obesity, what's the key word right here? Permanently. Antibiotics were designed for like when you were dying of something. You were going to die. And my patients come in for every hangnail, for every cough. I took so many antibiotics growing up. I fired the pediatrician when I was 13 because I was done staying sick because it was free and Ford paid for it. I had enough antibiotics and vaccines and all this junk for a lifetime. My dad, as I've said this before, why do you want to stop seeing this guy? It's free. I don't care that it's free. My poor friends seem to have a leg up on me in the health department once again. Now I want to mention this. These two little hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin, those are the ones that high fructose corn syrup tricks into thinking that you didn't eat sugar. That's why you eat sugar forever, because it doesn't signal those two to stop. Cane sugar tells those two you've had enough, so you stop. If you ever had any of that Mexican pop, we have an orange pop and a Mexican Coke, it's surprisingly satisfying, and it tells you one is plenty. Gut and brain. Gut and brain. We gotta get your gut working, because I am amazed at how casually the Americans have taken their gut. I gotta keep up with this sheet here. How many people out there make kefir? Do I have any kefir people in this crowd? One, two, three. If I was handy, I might make kefir. Kelly is making it now at home, she said. She was going to try it on her father first to see if he croaked. If he doesn't croak, it's cured. It was fine and everything. Or was that your mother-in-law? She just told me that today when we were going over the slide today. Some great ways to keep the germs healthy in your system. Prebiotics. I get some of those in something, but I don't get a lot of those in anything. You know, it's kind of funny. Years ago, you heard about that acidophilus. Then you find out, well, fructooligosaccharides, there's a separate germ in your urinary tract. So I don't want you poor women to raise their hands, but if I had a nickel for every woman that came in, they've made such a mess of their bladders with antibiotics. They ruin your bladder like they ruined my ears, and then convinced you that you had cystitis. It's cystitis. It's interstitial cystitis. How do you know it's not overuse of antibiotic-itis? No, it's interstitial cystitis. I could live. I decided at 13, my throat's sore, my ears are plugged, we're just going to go with this. I'll just live. But if my bladder bothered me all the time, I'm sure I'd have got myself in a mess. So there's a special germ that lines the urinary tract. Nobody told me about that. That's different. There's a prebiotic, which gives the soil for the probiotic. Realizing how complicated this germ thing is it's eye-opening. Now this is a new topic for you. This is a new topic, so pay attention to this. About 20 years ago, as this fear of germs continued to intensify, people started bringing me their babies whose skins were ruined since birth. People bring their kids in at 4. This kid's had eczema since he was born. How many people know these kids whose skin has been a train wreck since they were born? Unbeknownst to the doctors and the entire profession, if you want to see a kid get sick right out of the chute, there is an entire system of bacteria in the woman's reproductive tract that's a unique germ that you don't find anywhere else. When that kid comes through the vaginal tract, bacteria runs across that body faster than your eye can see. That bacteria protects the skin. So these kids, they're finding, have a ton of food allergies and a ton of skin problems if they missed. So your kid doesn't have a chance today because not only does a C-section miss that exposure of healthy germs, they've convinced every woman, if they don't fight, to get an antibiotic drip while they're delivering. They've sterilized the vaginal tract before the kid came out. These kids' skins are a mess from birth. That is the name right there, lactobacillus, and Prevotella is the germ that protects a newborn baby. So what I'd love to see a lot of women do, which I don't think you want to do, if you cultured that area of the body when you thought you were fresh and healthy, if I showed you what you could culture down there, you would not believe the bacteria that's always there. So watching them, these kids come in, they're sick, they got colic, their skin's a mess. Did you get that IV before the kid was born? Yes. They sterilized the kid's bacteria through the placenta and start him on a road to disease before he's born. And they never fully recover because it says it's permanent. Now, if you're willing, now they want you to get a flu shot while you're pregnant with mercury while the baby's in your womb developing his brain. 4 years ago, it was against the law to vaccinate a pregnant woman because it would damage the fetus. They're making it today so your children don't have a chance. How many teachers do I have in this crowd that are 50 or above? What are the kids like? What are the kids like? If they can stack blocks together, in 7th grade, they'll give them an honor roll thing. You get a bumper sticker on your car, and you get a flag in front of your house. He can count to 20. This kid's a genius. He's just a genius. How many people know somebody that has an honor roll student? Raise your hands. Come on. Some of you are, I'll point at you if you don't raise your hands, because I've listened to him count. I've watched him do his ABCs and stuff, and I wanted to cry when he was doing it. The fact that it was 10 didn't really mean much, but. You know, this one lady, one of my 25-year patients that their families at all my lectures, she fell for this. She's gonna, if I used their first names, was it Peter or Sean? Peter? She brings in her kids, she does everything right. They're wonderful patients, they do all the right things. So she brings little, Peter's this big now. She brings Peter, and he looked like if you took a blowtorch and just kind of singed his skin. He's beet red. He looked horrible. So she brings me this wrinkled, beet red kid, and she said, "What do you think of my baby?" I said, "He looks horrible." I said, "He completely looks like a mess." And she, you know, a tear starts coming out of her eye. I said, "Did you take that antibiotic?" "Yes, they made me." I said, "His skin's completely scorched." So took a little, at home, she took a little bath, put all these germs in it. We rolled this kid around for a month in this bath off and on, fed some in his mouth, and his skin's perfect. We caught him as soon as he was born and before he turned into that eczema mess. Nobody understands this. And they will continue to do this tomorrow because they think the vaginal tract doesn't have bacteria. They live in la-la land. I'll give you another secret before we get to the gut. The faster you poop or pee blood, the more I know you got E. coli. This one you'll find even in healthy people. That one you get in the hospital. We'll get to this one later. The doctors helped create that one. I was on a rare vacation a couple weeks ago, and I texted home. Me and my boys went on an adventure for a week. No cops, no chemtrails, and no customs. I actually felt like I was in a free spot. It was very interesting to watch as I sat and scanned the horizon as far as you could see. None of this. It was kind of different. I took my kids to Iceland, and we had been there a lot of years ago, and I promised I would take them back before I was in a home thinking I was Napoleon one day. So I still could navigate. We did 2,360 miles in a week. 3,668 kilometers. We drove so fast, we passed every car at least twice. We turned in the car at the airport, and the guy looked at the odometer and just burst out laughing. He just burst. He said, "Nobody has gone half this far in the time you were here." They said, "What did you see?" We said, "We saw everything." We absolutely saw everything. Now, if you're not used to this topic, as we look at this food thing, where is this strange food thing and this chemtrail thing going? This is the clip I had to use from the past. And if you're new, you might not get this, but the older patients remember.
Then we discover, as we're going further down the line, that there are companies generating genetically modified organisms, seeds, modified seed crops that they're being engineered to resist the aluminum in the soil. And a lot of crops won't grow in that. And so now, after they've messed up the soil, all the farmers were going to have to go back and buy seeds that have been genetically engineered to resist the aluminum that have been put into the soil. And all of a sudden, mankind is completely dependent upon these companies like Monsanto and other giant agricultural firms. You can't even grow natural seeds anymore. And we're looking at that. It's a shocking thing. I hope we don't find that that's true, but all the arrows right now are pointing in that direction.
The people who are in power control everything. They control the markets, they control us. Now they're even controlling the weather. And they can use that for warfare applications. The one thing that they cannot control is what God had originally made, and that's natural organic seeds. This is called the Hegelian dialect. It's called problem, reaction, solution. The problem here is massive amounts of aluminum, things starting to die. The solution is company X that says, hey man, you're not getting yields on your crop. Everything's dying. But I got the solution. I got a seed that will grow in this environment. The only problem is now you have to start buying from me. We're a little concerned that maybe part of this agenda could be to kill off anything that's natural and organic and re-engineer it with aluminum-resistant GMO seeds.
Many may know we just got back from a week of filming in Hawaii, and it was an incredible trip. A big concern for the people there is they're beginning to see softening of the coconut trees. But their concern is that these programs may again be part of a broader agenda to destroy anything that's natural and organic, so that the corporate redesigned GMO foods might be the only source of food for people.
Now, after the weapons of mass destruction thing that never panned out, the first thing Paul Bremer did in Iraq was to close the Iraqi seed bank. First thing. The Iraqi seed bank had seeds from the cradle of civilization that could grow in all weather. You take seeds from a wet year, a dry year, a cold year, a hot year, and you keep mixing them together. Pretty soon you get plants that will grow in anything. And GMO'd seeds are weak. They can't handle weather extremes. And I think anybody that shops sees what the prices are doing right now. What do you think this drought's going to do right now? They used to have seeds that were much stronger. But those were heirloom seeds. So these GMO'd seeds, which are being steered into, are weak seeds. And you're going to see food shortages in the future that you haven't seen because they can't handle weather extreme. I've been following this story because it disappeared too fast. I didn't have time to do this yet because this has been a busy time in my life. I got a radiation detector, and I've been meaning to get out and check the food. And I hopefully will get this done before Christmas, and I especially want to start at the Japanese grocery stores. It said right now that the radiation hitting the West Coast is 8 times normal. This is all over the world. I've been watching people with these radiation detectors on the web, standing out in the rain in Minnesota, one guy, and this thing's just screaming in the rain. If you Google Alaskan airline stewardesses and hair loss, hundreds, that jet stream took it straight up to Alaska, and hundreds of airline workers in Alaska, their hair's falling out, they're getting sick. They blamed it on, if you saw, well, it's your toxic uniforms you're wearing. And it's the radiation levels have been, by the grace of God, the Alaskan people are getting poisoned worse than we were. That's a good thing. But right now, what's coming out of this reactor is spewing just as hard as it was a year and a half ago. Nothing's changed. This thing is dumping. Why do you not hear about it? I told you before, because GE owns NBC. But this is our food is getting interestingly dusted with radiation. But you know, it's interesting as you get older and you pay attention. I've always enjoyed paying attention. I thought real news was much more fun than, you know, no disrespect, but Harry Potter and some of these you know, diversion, Spider-Man. You know, I'd like to say I'm a Spider-Man fan, but I'm not. To find out, watching these clips of 126 or 127 nuclear blasts about an hour north of Las Vegas. So back in the 50s, they used to stick their finger in their mouth, hold it up, see which way the wind was going, boom, and drop a hydrogen bomb on us. 127 times. Worried someday that we might be bombed by somebody, so we bombed ourselves first. Look it up. We have to nuke ourselves before anybody else does, so I wish I could say I was kidding. I'm not. Amazing. Just amazing. Now, you know, depleted uranium. Where did depleted uranium come from? There was nothing in Iraq, so we left 300 tons of that behind. It was the gift that keeps on giving. Where did depleted uranium come from? That's your spent nuclear fuel. Yeah. Absolutely. We had to find some place to get rid of our spent nuclear fuel. We made it into a weapon and dumped it all over the world. Okay, World War I. What did we get left with after World War I? Mustard gas. Mustard gas, the main element was, what was it? Mustard gas, the main element was chlorine. So you've been blessed with chlorine in your water. World War II blessed you with another ingredient. What was the other ingredient in World War II? Nope. Nitrogen-based fertilizers, TNT. So they started to convince you that TNT would be good for fertilizer because it had a high nitrogen content. It's a special gift. So every time there's a war, whatever's left over, we get to buy. It's a gift. I'm pretty regular on most of these, so I don't know. Maybe I'll just glow later than some of you, but I'll eventually glow, which is hopefully later. Because of our demineralized food, which has really left us in the lurch, I have these twins that went to the university down south, and they're playing in Lebanon. It's a nice, they were the Twin Towers down south. When their parents see this, they'll know who I'm talking about. So their kids went to Lebanon. So they're playing professional basketball in Lebanon. So the kid came in with bad knees. I shot his knees. This is a 25-year-old. So when you get no minerals in your food and you try to live like a kid, I have sent 3 20 to 30-year-olds for back surgery in the last 6 months because their backs were such a mess. These knees are so wore out. Look at that. And I looked at this kid. This is his life. He's making a lot of money overseas. I said, make as much money as you can because you're going to need a knee replacement at 40. So I've shot probably 10 sets of knees in the last 3 months. The kids have a kid's mind. They can't take the soccer. They can't take the cheerleading, the dancing. I have been shocked at the joint spaces on the children. There's nothing in your food. Nothing. The news columnist, the doctor for the newspaper, I'm not going to say his name so I can pick on him. It's on the sheet there. I looked into this dude's eyes. I thought, if you had red hair and an AK-47, you'd look like the dude in Colorado. He ain't far away. So he can't resist an eye roll when so many benefits are ascribed to one product. Somebody wrote in and said, hey, what do you think of CoQ10 for like taking Lipitor? I'm taking Lipitor, my body aches. He can't resist an eye roll. I think his eyes are stuck personally. and cut the medication in half to get an eye roll out of him. In the year 2000, Merck had a dirty little secret. They knew that they were sucking the CoQ10 out of people. So, unbeknownst to our medical physicians, they knew that low levels of CoQ10 were implicated in most cardiovascular diseases, and some of the big ones, heart failure, cardiomyopathy. And they knew that statins deplete CoQ10. So in 1990, they patented a cholesterol drug and added 1,000 milligrams of CoQ10 in it to offset heart failure. Then, in their love for humanity, they never released this product to the market. So now they got the patent locked up so nobody else can do it. And it's been sitting on the shelf since February of 2000. I can feel the love from here. Agent Orange. Now, when I did that autoimmune lecture, I apologized to the crowd before because it's like, this isn't going to be a pleasant lecture. And I said, this lecture is about the same thing. It's awful close to this. I had a tough couple, Jerry and Marion. They took it home and watched it. And the wife came in and said, you owe me and my husband a night's sleep because we didn't sleep after we watched your lecture. They're like 62, 64, tough couple that runs a trucking company. Agent Orange. First plan, they decided, hey, we'll take 2,4-D and we will destroy the Japanese rice fields in World War II. Doggone it. The war ended. Now what are we going to do? Well, I got an idea. Let's make a war on weeds. You got to have a war on poverty, cancer, Alzheimer's, something. We're going to make a war on weeds. Then we were blessed with another war. Now that Vietnam's here, well, I got a great idea. Now let's dump Agent Orange on Vietnam. Destroy the rice fields and rainforests. Let's deny them their food and cover because they were going to try to invade us one day. You guys knew that. That was a given. So in Vietnam, with our soldiers, diabetes, Parkinson's disease, liver dysfunction, numerous cancers, birth defects, this strange acne heart disease. I have children that are 30, 35, whose fathers were in Vietnam who have bone cancer. The kids got bone cancer from dad's exposure. So if you go over there, it's like the depleted uranium over in Iraq. The three-legged children are over there. And the problem is there's no circus. So the EPA reviewed all the literature and said, there's nothing wrong with this. They wanted to ban 2,4-D, and they said, no. After carefully reviewing this whole thing, this is how they word it, so nobody's what the heck they said. This is lawyer speak. The EPA is denying the request to revoke all tolerances and the request to cancel all registrations. What does that mean? It means that they said this stuff's good to go. Very technical, but this stuff's good to go. So now it's all over the place, from baseball fields and golf courses. There's cancer, and one of the big cancers that you're going to see is lymphoma. 2 of my friends have lymphoma. 2 have Parkinson's disease. 2 have died of Lou Gehrig's disease. And I've had 6 friends with brain cancer at 54 years old. That's what my generations had happen. So we got to get our heads together and come up with a new idea. I got an idea. Let's put it inside the corn. So now I already have farmers using this. I had one in last Thursday, and I asked them, are you using the Agent Orange, the 2,4-D seeds yet? And they said, yes. So now, after poisoning the world, we are going to see Agent Orange corn so that we can hopefully make this resistant So we can dump Agent Orange all over our food. That makes perfectly good sense to me. So you sit and watch this. You can read some of these things when you sign out the lecture. I sent a young child, he was 13 years old, he had to have his arm chopped off. I think it was his right arm. I've seen so much lymphoma. Dogs get lymphoma because they're running around on your lawns. That's where they're getting, ask the vets how much lymphoma they see in the pets. There's a lot, not to mention your kids. So we're going to use Agent Orange to replace Roundup, because Roundup Ready Seeds was going to put an end to the pesticide thing, which they, quintupled it. So now the weeds learned it, so this is just your next step, Agent Orange. The Dirty Dozen. These are I believe this started at about 63 chemicals and pesticides, and it worked its way down, which I thought was kind of interesting. People ask about this. This is for a special patient. There's special people. You'll see who that is in a minute. The Clean 15, asparagus, avocado, cabbage. You'll have to, sign this out to go over some of these in more detail. Now, why? Start going to the farmers markets, support your local farmers. You want to support that. You got to, push back to the, country being taken over by, big business. Now, why are these vegetables and fruits so much better? Organic produce have to activate their own defense system, which increases their level of antioxidants. This is very important. The more stress a plant is under, the more phytochemicals it produces. The phytochemicals that a plant produces is the nutrients that protect you. Plant chemicals. All those colors that you look at are disease-fighting colors. So if you stress the plant naturally, it increases the insecticides that keep the bugs off, which is a benefit to you. You want the plants under stress because it makes them healthier to eat. How many patients are nauseous? How many people that aren't patients of mine are sick to their stomach a lot? How many patients are nauseous here that are not a patient? You're not a patient, right? Is your stomach sick all the time? No, behind you. Is your stomach always sick? It's always nauseous, sick to your stomach. Is that true? Stand up for a second. This is your test. I'm not going to do anything other than poke on something. See, your friend did this. I'm going to poke right in your eye. Face these people. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to poke on two things. There's one thing. That's your gallbladder. That's your pancreas. Right there's your pancreas. How sore is that compared to your gallbladder? Which one's worse? Do you still have a gallbladder? Mm-hmm. Good, at least they didn't take that out.
They want to, though.
They want to take that out. If I talk, how many patients come in? How many medications do you take?
Not counting vitamins.
Not counting vitamins. The last funeral I went to in my family was my first cousin's 32-year-old kid. My stomach hurts I'm nauseous. My stomach hurts, I'm nauseous. My stomach hurts, I'm nauseous. He's not a patient of mine. I didn't hear about this till the day he died. So I'll never forget, I was in room 2. Lou opened the door and said, you know your first cousin? Yes. They just put his kid in the hospital for stomach problems. They don't think he's going to live. 6 hours later, his pancreas killed him. He was 32 years old. My last funeral. Michael Landon on Johnny Carson is saying, I'm nauseous and I'm throwing up. I'm nauseous and I'm throwing up. I'm nauseous and I'm throwing up. So Johnny Carson says, well, what's the matter with you? He said, they're treating me for an ulcer. I said to my wife, watch this. He'll be dead in a year. She said, why? I said, because that's not an ulcer. He's got pancreatitis. By the time they figured it out, he had pancreatic cancer. It spread to his liver and he was dead. Who died in the last week from pancreatic cancer? Sally Ride, your astronaut, the first female in space. She just croaked the pancreas. Patrick Swayze died from his pancreas. So patients on too many medications come in, they're nauseous and they're sick to their stomach. The doctors never find this. By the time they figure this out, you got about a week to live. Chuck Daly died of this. Don Hewitt from 60 Minutes died of this. And how many people remember the guy running against Putin that almost croaked? His name was Viktor Yushchenko. He was at a State Department dinner. He ate, me and Kelly read the article today preparing for the lecture. She brought it up. It was amazing. He has a food taster that they got the food taster to go this way. They had his bodyguard. He talked to his bodyguard and going this way. You're not going to need him. You're going to have a secret meeting with so-and-so. So he goes to this dinner. The strange waiter and cook puts this food in front of him. He gets sick as a dog, starts puking his guts out. They rush him to the hospital and they say, you have acute pancreatitis. Took 3 days to go, they poisoned you with dioxin. And if he didn't throw up in the car on the way to the hospital, he'd have been dead. His face is permanently disfigured. His name was Viktor Yushchenko. He was a handsome man that you should see what that poison did to him. It shredded his face. But so many people are coming in nauseous and sick to their stomach. The doctors have no clue. They tell you got GERD or something. You're watching a generation poisoned right in front of you. Poisoned. I got kids throwing up strawberries as fast as they bring the kids in. This kid's been eating strawberries for a week and he's puked 17 times and he's not sick. But the strawberry looks so good, the strawberry's killing him. He's trying to tell you, give him a McNugget, at least that'll stay in his stomach. So to settle the pancreas down, we use glandulars, something called telangia, and some very specific enzymes that and I put you on some restricted diets, and I got to find out which chemicals are poisoning your stomach. I've seen antidepressants take out the pancreas. Apples are the most polluted. I think this lady's in the crowd. This was an interesting story. I think this lady's actually in the crowd because she can't believe it. She lives downriver. Some chemical plant exploded. She's been on disability with abdominal pain, nausea, no appetite, severe stomach. They took out her gallbladder because they can always talk you into taking out your gallbladder because you can slide along without that, but they can't take out your pancreas, so nobody knew what this is. A huge chemical fire downriver. She told me the name of the plant that blew up. Anybody lives downriver? This huge chemical plant blew up. Everybody got sick. So she was sick within a half an hour. She was seeing 15 physicians, and it really took a couple of months to straighten out her pancreas. Her pancreas was beautiful when we got done, but they didn't know what was wrong with her because they missed this all the time. You saw the pink slime thing. They got caught with this, so they're going to put it in something else that they're just going to change it. Everybody remembers the pink slime. Just scrape the lips and the testicles off and the hoofs and stuff, grind it up, spray it with some ammonia, you are good to go. It's a burger. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, Kelly. Uh-oh. Omega-3 fatty acid deficiency when your kid's in the womb and you're a baby has a lot to do with how the plasticity of adulthood with your brain, how able are you to absorb new things? How well does your brain improve? Should I, Kelly? This was from last week. I was sitting in room 2 with the guy that's the CEO and president of a famous company. He knows that I'm nuts. We get along good. I can speak plainly to him. And he said to me in the room, do you think I should take fish oil? I said, I looked at him. It was the afternoon. I said, do I think you should take fish oil? I said, why would you want to take fish oil? He said, well, he said, you know, I've read some things about it. It sounds like something good that I should take. I said, well, I said, all your friends are on low-fat, low-cholesterol diets. I said, your brain's half fat and half cholesterol. I said, everybody's sucking the life out of their brain. Why would you want to take fish oil? He said, well, why wouldn't I? I said, well, if you took fish oil, I said, you realize they just talked all your children into putting mercury, aluminum, formaldehyde in their brain. We'd ruin all the kids, put them all in special ed. They'd all be ADD, ADHD, speech pathology. They'd be ruined, and they'd get a prize if they could stack blacks on top of each other. I said, they'd convince you that fluoride's good for your teeth, but there's not an ounce of fluoride in your body. In fact, it's just a waste product. And Harvard this week said the massive amount of fluoride you have been exposed to has absolutely tanked your IQ. I said, I would convince you that NAFTA, if you all voted for NAFTA, we'd send all your jobs overseas and it would be a good thing. I said, once all your jobs went overseas, you guys would go, this was a great idea. I said, we'd put Agent Orange all over your food. We'd stick Roundup. Nobody'd make a peep. We'd be watching the Kardashians. I said, I'm going to give you insurance that will cover every toxic poison chemical. And if you want to get well, you got to pay out of your own pocket. And you'd stand in line for this insurance. I said, why would you want to take fish oil? I said, I'd convince you that 2 planes took down 3 buildings. I'd convince you that fertilizer blew up this building 200 feet away. I said, I'd put Goldman Sachs in charge of the Treasury, bankrupt the entire country, and I said, then bonus the people that did it. And this guy's laughing so hard he's almost going to wet his pants. I said, if we kill enough people in the Middle East, we're going to be doing Jesus a favor, and one day he's going to say, hey, thanks for killing all these people. I said, last but not least, I'm going to have 2 people running for president. One rich white guy that I don't know where his money is at, and he's going to admit he's in a 14% tax bracket. I said, then I got the mystery man in the White House that the first thing he did as president was hide all his records. And nobody asked why. I said, you don't want to take fish oil. You'd figure out what was going on. I'm sorry. The mystery man goes on. No, you don't want to take fish oil, you'd figure it out. Yesterday, finally, now that you're all doing it, you're getting Alzheimer's disease from your statins. Why wake up your brain now? Unbelievable. I welcome the foreigners to this country. Now, people ask me, well, what are we supposed to do? I want to vote everybody out until they learn their lesson. If you're in my book, you're out. If that answers your question, in, out. Keep cycling them through till you get somebody that straightens out this mess, but I don't think it's going to happen. Gallbladder, my McNugget people, my peanut butter people, if I had a nickel for every gallbladder problem, there's more of that I've seen than anything. How many people in this crowd have had the gallbladder taken out? Raise your hands. On all the gallbladder patients, how much weight did you gain after your gallbladder was taken out? How much weight would you say you've gained? I have patients 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40, probably the average person's gained 30 to 40 pounds after the gallbladder is taken out. Why? Why did you gain so much weight after your gallbladder was taken out? When you take out your gallbladder, here's your liver, here's the holding tank, here's your bowel. Take out the gallbladder, bile starts to leak into your colon all the time. So when the bile leaks into your colon, it's going to give you what one patient said, this rat gut feeling. And your bile is trying to digest the wall of your colon. So what are you going to do? Because bile is not supposed to be there unless you eat. So what are you going to do to knock that heartburn out all the time? You're going to eat. So as you continue to poop out all your fats, vitamin A, D, E, F, and K, I have a ton of patients who I treat for gallbladder trouble after the gallbladder has been removed, because the stump is still. How many people had their gallbladder taken out and their symptoms didn't change? Anybody in the crowd would say they had the same symptoms? Because I will get, probably 50% of the patients will complain. Then what do they do when you have the same symptoms? What do they tell you? Now you have a hiatal hernia. They're going to give you a new diagnosis with the same symptoms. Kelly found a hiatal hernia picture. You got to pull those things out of the, they call everything a hiatal hernia. There's not as many true ones as I'd like you to believe, but at least it shuts you up and gets you out of the office. If you learn to use emulsified bile when you take fat, women and men come in and say their depression changes, their skin changes, their hormones improve, their bowels stabilize, and they don't have to eat constantly. So learning to use purified bile salts can totally, you don't want to poop these things out every day. A, D, E, F, and K, you're going to die 10 years earlier. Taking out your gallbladder has been a catastrophe for most of you. So you patients ask about this if you're in. Most people don't think they have to pay any attention. You're going to lose your fats, and it's going to affect your brain because your brain's made of fat. Kelly said this young man had gallbladder and his pancreas was acting up. He lost 17 pounds. He's doing good. I saw my son out there in the corner. Campylobacteria, toxoplasma, listeria they found on that cantaloupe. That has an incubation period of 4 weeks, by the way. So salmonella, the sickest I ever got was off a salad bar, an egg on a salad bar in Cancun. I thought I was going to die. You know, everybody's had that diarrhea sometime in your life when you thought, you know, your brain was going to come out next. And that was about that one. There's your cruise ship virus. I prepare my missionaries, my cruise ship, and my presidents of companies that got to travel around the world. I show them how to be proactive on all these bugs. My son in the back, he's 20. He had a chicken sandwich at one of the fast food restaurants. He was bent over, pooping blood and tissue, feverish, lost 11 pounds when he weighed 80. It took me 3 weeks to write his colon. And I knew someday my son was going to get sick because it became obvious. When Bill Clinton got in office, the first thing he did, he put Mike Espy in charge of the Department of Agriculture. And what's the first thing Mike Espy did? I put up this thing that long ago at a lecture. He removed chicken feces as a contaminant to processing of chicken. Once chicken feces was reduced, Tyson, the big political force in Arkansas that helped put Clinton in office, was able to speed up the assembly line from 60 to 90 birds a minute, because now they could rupture the intestines and not worry about contamination. So you will see contamination. That's a political payoff that has affected people. And my son has never forgotten that chicken sandwich at a place 2 miles down the road. Have you ever had one there since? No. How old were you when that happened?
10 or 11.
You still remember that, don't you? He was sick. Sick. And it got pretty scary. So this is when I get these, 7 years later, their guts are half shredded, their bowels half wore out, and it gets to be trickier. The faster you catch this stuff, it took 3 weeks to catch that as soon as it happened. Since our food's full of poop and pee, and salmonella and listeria and Agent Orange and Roundup, I think the best thing you could do is take an antacid. Let's just stop. Let's make sure it just rots and runs right through you. Let's make, you have no clue how many people have chosen, I'm going to stop my digestion because the food's completely contaminated. Doctors get paid a lot of money to stop your digestion, and they do. This is one of my staff members' grandfathers. This is what it looks like if you want to not have your stomach work your whole life. This is what it looks like. Here's an 80-year-old guy. He thinks he's Napoleon, and he's basically starved to death right in front of everybody. Out of the 4 grandfathers or grandmas in me and my wife's family, 3 of them, I remember Grandma Cassie, my dad's mother, going into her apartment. Gas X, Mylanta, Maalox, Rolaids, Tum. She had 5 bottles. She was a gas bag. Her stomach was completely dead. She farted constantly. It just became Grandma. It was instead of singing, Grandma farted. And it just got, me and my friends would just kind of put our head down when she let that musical fart rip across the room. Now I realize her stomach was dead. Instead of helping her to digest her food, they chose to kill it. And her brain followed till she just sat in a wheelchair and crapped on herself. With her General Motors insurance paying every step of the way, it was free crappage. Very important. You got to learn how to, this little combination is going to help you make. I'm at Quiznos in Northville. Tonight, my special, my wonderful Indian server is behind the counter. So I get my boring, just give me my contaminated chicken, my teriyaki contaminated chicken, and some cheese, and you can leave off the spices. And this polite, kind man said, "You don't like the spices?" I said, "Nah, I don't really need any of the spices." I said, I'm fine." "Oh, I like all the spices. I have to have all the spices." I said, "By any chance, are you a vegetarian?" "Oh, yes, I am." I said, "Your digestion's completely dead." "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you got to have all the spices or you can't eat this thing because it's just going to sit in your stomach." I got plenty of digestive juices. They're fine. Just give me the chicken and the cheese, and we'll move on down the counter. Okay. I went in this ear, went out the other ear. Stomach dead. Watched. How many people got to have spices with their food? I like your spice. You're afraid to raise your hand, I'll poke on something. My zinc test. How many patients have had the zinc test ran in their office? Your zinc test. Most people flunk the zinc test because they don't have any stomach acid. Interesting patient. His wife says to me, my husband's 35, and I'm worried about his mind. I asked him, do you go to the bathroom? Well, yeah, I take fiber every day. It's because you don't digest your food. So if you got to take fiber at 35 to go to the bathroom, and he says, I have the best bowel habits. You're not supposed to take fiber at 35. You're supposed to digest your food. Dead stomach, full of mercury. Dead stomach, full of mercury. It was a disaster. And his wife says, something's wrong with his brain because he's going south at 35. My bowels are good. I will take some of these periodically, eating later at night. I make sure I can digest the Agent Orange and the Roundup and the Listeria and the E. coli. I don't want to take a chance with my stomach. This patient has been a 20-year patient. By the way, her brother was a great patient, died of esophageal cancer. Had some heartburn. They found esophageal cancer at 47. They got it all. It came back. They got it all. It came back. They got it all. It came back. Then he croaked. And I think he died at 52. Very cool guy. This guy, her brother was such a character. When the Red Wings won the cup in the 90s, I have to say something for Jim. Took a press pass, Xeroxed the press pass, got that thing around the neck, took his camera, marched right into the Red Wings dressing room, and he's standing between Yzerman and Fedorov drinking out of the cup, and they think he's with the press. and I'm watching this dude, I'm going, holy Toledo, he was a good talker. Right into the locker room. I was impressed. This is his sister. Eats a salad, rushed to the hospital. She's septic in 6 hours. Oops. Septic. Her fever's 105 by the time it's an hour and a half, 101. ER, 106. She was on 5 IV antibiotics for 7 days. This is a $50,000, $100,000 game. Doctors had no clue. So I asked her a question. Does eating make you better or worse? She said, well, my stomach hurts, then I got to eat. I poked on her duodenum, and she said, man, my stomach hurts. She got a duodenal ulcer from all the Advil, ibuprofen, Motrin. As soon as she ate that salad, which all these people think all these little bleeders are healthy, you open that pathway in your GI tract with all your medications, you will have bacteria run right into your bloodstream. So she had nobody at the hospital could figure this out, had an undiagnosed duodenal ulcer. That E. coli went into her system and she about died. So Advil, ibuprofen, Motrin, Celebrex, Vioxx, Plavix, Coumadin. We had a truck driver Monday. Guy's blind in one eye, and he's a tough guy. And he says, you know, the doctor just cut my Plavix. He's standing there, blood's pouring out of his nose and pouring out of his butt. That's about the time we should cut back the blood thinners. They finally, yeah, maybe we should, pouring out of both ends. And he's blind in one eye. I'm surprised he didn't go blind in the eye because his eye should have ruptured before his nose and his butt did. It's like my dad's best friend. His best friend died. And I said, well, how did he die? He said, his duodenum ruptured. I said, how does this? I said, what do you mean his duodenum ruptured? He said, he's perfectly healthy. Why would his duodenum rupture? I said, Coumadin and Lipitor, Plavix and Questron. He gets up from the Thanksgiving table, calls Shirley. What kind of drugs was Harold taking? A blood thinner, Lipitor. Bowel ruptured, pooped inside himself, and he croaked. Bob Talbert died that way, by the way. You remember the columnist for the Pre-Pest, that communist columnist? my favorite story of the year. My favorite story of the year. Come back from lunch. I got this guy and his wife in room 6. I'll never forget this. He was flown up. He is involved with the owner of the Red Wings and the Tigers. Works for part of that company. 10 different people told him to come and see me, so he finally did. And he's got a bleed. He's pooping blood and dark stools for 6 months. They can't find it. Seen 4 MDs in Florida. He lives in Florida with all these franchises. 6 MDs in Michigan. 2 hematologists. Has done 4 endoscopies. Swallowed a camera 3 separate times. He's had 47 blood transfusions. This is how bad he's bleeding. He's got ulcers and blood clots. They can't find it. He said, now, if you nurses out there, he had a TPA push. How many people know what that is? Any nurses know what that is? What's a TPA push? He said to me, I never heard this before. He said, they stick a catheter in my groin. It's extremely risky and dangerous. They try to force your colon to bleed so they can find it. Is that the way you would understand that? That's his quick description to me, and that's, all right, as close as I can get to it. I was going to look it up, but I didn't. Then, this gets better. He had exploratory bowel surgery. They slit him open. They're looking for this bleed. They slit him open and unraveled his intestines through the room. Laid his bowel out across the operating room and went over every inch of his bowel. Couldn't find it, so they packed it back in, sewed him up. Then I get him. For some of you people, they flew him up from Florida and sent him to Doc Weaver, a great surgeon down at Oakwood. So nobody knows what to do with this guy, so I walked in the room, listened to this story, and remember being the quack that I am and not really having this type of training. I said, you know, you're coming to a dumber guy now. We're down at the bottom. So, since I'm not that smart, I'm going to throw every green thing down your stomach I can throw down. I threw cabbage, okra, chlorophyll, pepsin. I said, I'm going to have you pooping blue-green until something happens. So I had him pooping tons of blue-green. The bleed completely stopped. His GI, his blood count went back to normal. He came in from Florida and said, I can't believe. And when he came in, I said, I know I am going to get your stomach fixed. And I'm going to get this. I said, I would be scared to death about 47 blood transfusions. Scared to absolute death. You are a complete time bomb with those transfusions. So instead of using something like this, I had him on 3 things, 2, 2, and 2, 4 times a day, before breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, before I went to bed. Just keep pounding that gut and everything healed. And I have no clue where that thing was. I didn't care where it was. But to talk somebody into stringing their bowel out across the room, you'd have to do some serious talking. I think it's my favorite story of the year. I saw him twice. He's back in Florida. I got to look at these. I had Kelly, what do we do on these people? She had to look this up. Crohn's disease started with bloody mucus stool cramping. This lady had parasites. She was doing well. It's interesting, these names they use. Now, by the looks of this, ulcerative colitis 5 years ago, stomach aches, bowel movements, 40 bowel. When you get 40 bloody bowel movements a day, and you're 42, I think you split that chicken sandwich with you, Dill. I think he ate the other half of that one. And that was, you got to learn to kill bacteria without killing people. And these aren't always easy. Don't think these are easy, because your gut's full of scar tissue. It gets shredded. It gets extremely difficult. Imported foods. Kelly. I want you to see what the bacterial people look like when they come in with contaminated food. Crohn's disease for 40 years, in remission since last fall, off steroids in December, flare-ups 1 to 2 times a year. Symptoms are pain in the gut with blood and stool, never diarrhea. This is when you want to catch them. If you can catch them between a flare-up, that's the time you want them. Catch them between the flare-up, because you know what the hardest thing I tell these people about fixing them is? Eating contaminated food before you're well. I can eat poisoned food. I go to the bathroom 3 or 4 times, I'm done. It's going to shred these people. Trying to fix them while they're being poisoned is difficult. If they get a bad egg, a bad piece of turkey, bad sushi or something, they stir the whole thing up and they can set you back like that. So all you doctors in the crowd, and I know there's a bunch of you out there watching this, you've got to warn them that they can't eat contaminated food because it's going to stir them up. You did very well. Diverticulitis. I get 20 of these a year. The men usually run straight to the emergency room. The men run to, you got to cool off the polyps. You got to get the bacteria under control. Get the germ right. Usually it's 3 to 5 days. The stories that people go through with this. A lady from Florida, camera in her rectum, camera in her vagina, camera up her bladder, CAT scans, MRIs. Complete disaster. This is a very, kind of private, 80-year-old woman. And it was a complete mess in Florida. This was a disaster. She got herself together, came up here. I had it fixed in 3 days. Her lawyer husband wrote a 5-page letter to the doctors in Florida about what complete incompetent nincompoops they actually were. You should see what happens when my patients go to Florida for the wintertime. You will be lucky to survive the Florida hospitals. It is a very interesting group down there. This was massacred. Anybody that knows Olga had pneumonia. That was a $50,000 journey. They about whacked her in there. This is one of my favorite things lately. The American Academy of Pediatrics recently said, if after your son gets his vaccinations and he starts having seizures, it's a good thing because it means the vaccine's working. I can't make this stuff up. If he has convulsions, we're good. Just cool him off. Hopefully he'll be able to walk before he's 30, and he won't get that doggone measles. Unbelievable. Then an international meeting for autism. They gave the monkeys the shots. The monkeys got autism, but those are just monkeys. That's all right. One of the things I was driving here, Kelly, on my list of rants, I thought of something. I said, and if you're really lucky, you're going to send your kid to public school and they're going to try to convince you that you came from a monkey. I said, and I'm sitting here driving thinking, I got news for you. Monkeys are smarter than you. Monkeys wouldn't put Agent Orange on their banana. They wouldn't put mercury inside their bloodstream. The monkey wouldn't charge, the fox in charge of the choices. My dog would not put poison on his food. He's a Pomeranian. He's this big. I'm sure he would stick up his nose and walk away. Think about that. Just think about that. I want to convince my dog that he really came from a giraffe. You are not. That's your dad. He'd bite me. He would absolutely bite me. This is, look, I start my 32nd year August 3rd. I warned you at my 30th year, this is my decade. I have seen everything 12 times. I have been tortured listening to nonsense till it spills out over and over. We just have to cringe sometimes. Well, there was this whooping cough epidemic. They said, well, it's the unvaccinated people. No, it's not. All the people that got the whooping cough had the shots. It was the antibiotic people that were the real threat. Again, I keep trying to say, my sons are not the problem. They're well kids, the kids with all the antibiotics and the vaccines. Just by the way, about 10, 12 years ago, they started making genetically modified people that you don't know are out there. They've been sticking the DNA of 3 parents together. We don't know what this is going to do. It's a huge experiment, and I think, the big guy is going to be a little upset with this, actually. Designer babies. Once again, they were puzzled that the Amish kids had no autism, allergies, or asthma. They didn't correlate that they didn't get shots, and there's, the rest of the story. This was a huge scandal that's going on right now. This cost the U.S. government hundreds of millions of dollars. These 2 virologists were whistleblowers. They came up against Merck and said, let me tell you what was going on with this whooping cough vaccine. Look it up. I don't have time to go into it. It was incredible. What a story. What a complete disaster. It's just sad. This was on the news, and it affects nobody. Nobody's gonna, they're gonna keep doing the same thing. What a disaster. Whooping cough sky high, but it's all the vaccinated people. It's still our fault. I know it's my fault still. Monsanto decided to ban their GMO foods. They don't want that in their cafeteria. You can't make this up. You cannot look it up. You gotta serve us regular food. We're not gonna eat this crap. We'll grow it, we'll make it, we'll sell it. You're gonna eat it. Okay, I understand. Michigan, they tried to pass a law. Will you please tell us what foods are genetically modified? No, Carl Lennon, he didn't. Stabenow didn't. And Rand Paul didn't. It's going to be hidden which foods have the poisons in them. We don't want you to know. These are the people that you elect. Excuse me. Everybody in this food is eating genetically, in this room has had genetically modified food. There's nobody that hasn't. Nobody. Russia says if you eat this food, the animals can't reproduce. Most of the world is throwing out this food because it sterilized the animals. Brazil has a huge lawsuit now. They got whacked. Monsanto is taking a hit in South America. They got together and went after this. They didn't sit and eat this crap. They got together and said, done. It's going to change. 3rd generation on the animals, 3rd generation sterile. Number 3. 3rd generation. We're sitting here close in the middle of the 2nd right now. Fertility is a huge problem. Wait till you see what 3 generations. Time's going to wrap up before this. You watch. It's just getting worse and worse. look up at this this is now after you get past the GMO, they're looking at this Bt toxin. Now I take some of those germs that I talked about, I'll take 2 of those 3 times a week. I'm trying to throw some good bacteria in my gut so I can go to lunch and eat an antibiotic and some genetically modified stuff and some poison. And I hope it's a tie by the time it's all done. I'm just playing for a tie, not even a victory, just a tie. So I do take some to try to keep my gut healthier than the pesticide factory that the UK scientists said, you're transferring genes from the Bt toxin in the soy into the DNA. It's engrafting into your own bacteria. So your body starts turning over germs with it in it. You don't understand what I'm saying? This is forever. This doesn't stop. Now, consider yourself one of these bloody diarrhea people. You're already sick as a dog, and you got to try to get your gut healthy, and this is what's inside your stomach. You know, I've taken 3 pills. Why is my stomach still sick? It's producing its own Roundup. And what happened in 1996? You sit in a restaurant now. This kid can't eat corn. This one can't have soy. This one can't eat a peanut. This one can't have wheat. This one can't eat rice. This one can't eat the food. The allergic content has skyrocketed. The gluten in wheat has skyrocketed with this GMO stuff. That's why a lot of people can't eat things they used to, because the allergens have been increased. Is that little thing just popping up there? That's good. I mean, it's the source. Now, how does the genetically modified Roundup work? It strips the plant of minerals. You've got to understand this. It strips the plant of minerals. It's going to strip you of minerals. It strips the plant of minerals so the bacteria in the ground that it can fight back kills it. You've got to understand how this works. It sucks the minerals out of the plant and leaves it open to the stuff that it can easily handle. 70%. 70% of the nutrients are gone. Genetic expression has been compromised. You can turn off your genes, which is just, you don't even want to know where that goes. My patients, because of this, not having the best diet, which I, readily admit, because, my life has been pretty hectic. I didn't really sign on for this life. My dear mother pushed me into this. And it's been a strange adventure. So I've had 20 patients ask me, are you losing weight? Am I losing weight? Well, I really wasn't trying to lose weight. I finally had, it was all the older women, grandmas, they apparently looked me over, are you losing weight? Well, I'm down actually 12 pounds. This lecture has made me sick. It's personally made me sick. So when I go through the mall and I look at everybody with this weight issue, well, you're basically all gaining weight because your food's dead. Okay, there's nothing in your food. So you're going to eat tons of food because there's nothing in your food. So eat constantly. So between the chemicals and the poisons, this is all cereal grasses, vegetables, the cruciferous vegetables and sprouts, all heirloom seeds. This is what I put my cancer patients on, my sick patients. I've started, because of this lecture, 2 tablespoons, 1 scoop, and 2 tablespoons twice a day. I ate my little restaurant food at lunch, picked some nuts. I wanted to do some high-density food. My cravings stopped. I dropped 12 pounds trying to do nothing. I have tremendous energy. I go to the bathroom great. I can do this before hockey. I'm still playing year-round hockey. I've been doing 2 of these shakes, and this is what I used to do with the really sick people, and I decided maybe I am one of these people because I'm tired of this food. I've been doing 2 of these a day. I did it this morning, and I'll do it tonight. And if you don't like the taste of stuff, you can put raw chocolate in it. Now, I don't mind the taste of it at all, but I take a huge scoop of chocolate in the morning because it's like an antidepressant that's not going to make you go out and shoot somebody. And I do this. I took 6 GTF and 3 Gymnema. This kills my carb cravings completely, stabilizes my blood sugar. So the less of that junk I eat, the more energy I have. I stick a teaspoon in my shake. So I pounded the minerals because everything's stripping it. And I've been living on this twice a day. This is all once a day. And I've lost 12 pounds, and I'm going to try to lose another 10 or 12, and I just feel better because I can't eat out of a mailbox. I'm not counting calories. I'm not going to a meeting to stand on a chair and talk about eating granola bars or something. I'm just not doing it. So I've been feeling outstanding, and I'm doing this because the food stinks. And it's been worth it for me to do because I'm a working stiff. The first vitamin ever was Catalin. Carrot, 1 ingredient in Catalin, carrot root powder. This is the assay of carrot root powder. It's incredible. That's what food, the complexity of food is. That's your vitamin that you pregnant women should take if you don't want your kid, in the basement. You want to get out and make a stand somewhere because our kids are coming home, and as we get older, we don't want our kids at home unless we have to. They have gluten-free Catalin, which my wheat patients have enjoyed. I'll let you read this when you get the lecture out. All the things they're finding about the rats and the offspring of the animals and the GMO foods and the farmers. It's just a mess, just a mess. The BT corn, they're finding that tied in with Lou Gehrig's disease, and the bowels are all messed up, and the fertility issues. So now all the allergens have increased, plant toxin levels, got antibiotic-resistant disease. Now everybody's find out what foods you can eat. Pay attention. If you eat something and you're always sick, don't eat it. People eat the same thing. Just making sure that trying to keep my time going. I remember I'm sitting in this, I don't know where it was a long time ago. It was a farm journal. I picked up the farm journal. It was about farmers and Parkinson's. Who do you think had all the Parkinson's? Farmers. Why would the farmers, the farm states had the Parkinson's? Why? All the chemicals. So if you want to know where Parkinson's is, I'm watching Sanjay Gupta interview Michael J. Fox. It's on YouTube. You can probably see this. And they said, Michael, you've raised $250 million for Parkinson's research. He said, I'm here to tell you we're not one step closer than we were $250 million ago. You keep going. I'll raise another $250 million. Go for it. The answer is pretty much simple. This is the label you want to look for, 100% USDA organic label. I'm going to skip this, how to avoid the foods. Covered that. There's a shopping guide. It's a simple iPad app. It's free. I don't shop anyway. Let me get Alex off of there. Non-GMO shopping guide. If I ever shopped, I would use this little app. I'm not big in shopping. When I do shop, I don't get things that are that healthy. My wife gets the healthy stuff. I would go more for the junk. I get my nutrition the best I can, and I hit it very hard, and I don't, skimp on that at all. Now, This guy basically, there's a revolving door. I got to go back. Kelly took time to make this. This is the revolving door between Monsanto and the FDA. There's a revolving door. Michael Taylor, the head of the FDA, head of Monsanto. Head of Monsanto, head of FDA. Monsanto, FDA, FDA, Monsanto. Simple. Excuse me. All the people that have gone back and forth, this is well established. It's all over the web. We don't have a chance. They're going to control Department of Agriculture, Food and Drug Administration, Center for Disease Continuation. People, you better, young people, if you're going to have kids, you better hit it because they're really destroying your fertility. It's been aggressively irritated. If you look on the web, TTC means trying to conceive. I can't tell you how many people are having trouble having kids. Is it possible that that's the plan? Where did you find this? A hamster growing hair in his mouth. Kelly found this. Third generation of hamster before GMO. Now he's growing hair in his mouth. Have to have a new, like a toothbrush shaver combination next. Hey, this is a growth industry for a guy that really wants to, right there, you'd be ahead of the curve, a razor blade on a toothbrush. Yeah. If the big guy ever, how do you answer for 250 million committing suicide because their crops, like I said, they're fragile seeds. If the weather's not right, a crop's wiped out. You sign your land to get these expensive seeds. You got to sign your land over. You got to turn over the land. You got to buy their pesticide. It's only going to work. And if you have a crop failure, you go and drink a gallon of Roundup in front of your family and you croak on the living room floor. 250 million Indian farmers have croaked by drinking a gallon of Roundup in front of their family. I'm almost done here. Genetic engineering is fun. One of my favorite topics. I only got about 9 left, so less than that. I got the hairy tongue thing, okay? Parasites. In 32 years, having never, ever in my life, ever seen a pediatrician catch a parasite on a kid. Dylan, in the back, my son, sitting in the corner. When I get along great with my kids. Dylan, at about 7, had parasites. He turned into the exorcist. He did everything except spin his head in a circle. He couldn't get his head in a circle. We're on vacation. All of a sudden, my son changed and he turned crabby and he got pretty rambunctious in a kind of a different, odd way. We put a protein digesting enzyme down him and he passed about 75 pieces a minute rice that he could see. He went to the bathroom. And he saw that and he completely freaked out. That's inside of me. Everybody in my office has debugged themselves. Improperly washed fruits and vegetables, pets, parasites have visited all of you. It's gross, so nobody wants to talk about it. I've watched my favorite patient was named Tyler. He was kicked out of 7 schools before he was 12 because of his parasites. I got him to poop out 1,000 bugs. My favorite patient in my career, the major hospital in this area, I dewormed the head dude's wife. It's the full moon today. How many people have sharp stomach pains today? All the people with parasites, today's the full moon, the bugs are hatching while you're sitting there. And when the head doctor of blank hospital, his wife was carted out on a gurney on the full moon, they wanted to take out 3 feet of her bowel for diverticulitis. Her sister snuck her to see me behind his back. This is the head GI doctor of the big hospital. The head GI doctor. Why did his sister bring her sister to me? Well, she had a back operation. She wakes up, her back's killing her. Great surgeon, a guy that I highly recommend who's now retired, took out the wrong disc. She comes in, I adjust her 3 or 4 times. Luckily, it was simple. Her dad is a big shot over there and sent her to his buddy, fixed her back. So now they want to cut her sister's gut. Look, I want you to come here with me. I got her to pass 1,000 things in front of him. He had never seen this before in his life. She was taken out in an ambulance on the full moon. I explained the hatch cycle on the full moon. She said, I can't believe you said that. I left the house on a stretcher in the ambulance. I said, look at this night. How could I feel like this? It was the full moon. Watch. How many teachers, what's the full moon like in school? How bad is it? How many people, who works with the public? What's the full moon like? Those are your parasite people. Simple. My kids could watch every single one in their class. They could go through any full moon. Could you not pick them out? And Janice has been with me years. You could pick out every kid. Dylan could pick out every kid in the class. They're pale, their stomach hurts, they're acting. I remember Greg, 5th grade. Greg, underbilled. I'll say it's awful close to his name. All he did was scratch his butt through elementary school. Remember the kid that always scratched his butt in school? I'm like, don't you got like a baseball bat to hold on to or something? You need something else. I can still remember this kid. I'm this old. I said, he walked around with his hand up his can all the time. Something's, Greg, don't sit with me at the lunch table, whatever you do. Other side of the table. I remember these things. People are like, why is he like this? They don't know. I don't hit it. Watch this. 1 out of 3 seizure patients. This is 1 out of 3 seizure patients right here in the world.
Tonight, you'll learn how hand washing could prevent a scary brain condition. A Valley mother of 4 is told that she has a brain tumor. But when doctors go in to remove it, they find something else, something living inside her brain.
I thought I had the flu. I started feeling tired.
But within days, this soccer coach and PTA president knew it wasn't the flu.
I started feeling numbness in my left arm, blurred vision.
2 trips to the ER solved nothing.
CAT scan came back normal, no problem.
But MRI explained those strange symptoms.
It came back. You have a brain tumor.
Neurosurgeon Dr. Peter Nakaji.
Once we saw the MRI, we realized this is not good. It's something down in her brainstem, which is as deep into the brain as you can be.
He showed me the video as he operated on Rosemary's brain. No tumor, instead a worm. Watch as Dr. Nakaji grabs the worm and gently tugs it out of Rosemary's brain. It's still alive. This worm comes from eating undercooked pork, but more frighteningly, it can be spread by people who have the parasite in their bodies and don't wash their hands well after using the bathroom. That is the problem. What is normally a rare occurrence has become much more common. Dr. Nakaji has removed 5 of them in the past few months, and other doctors at Barrow, they're seeing more of them too. Rosemary says the most important thing she learned is how to really live.
I was so busy in life with everything else, and sometimes telling my kid, okay, I'll be right there, or hold on, and no, I can't right now, or no, I'm coming. I'll be right there.
They hope everyone learns something from this story so no one else has to go through what Rosemary did.
Wash your hands.
In the world, 1 out of 3 seizure patients are considered to have a parasite in their brain. 1 out of 3. You weren't supposed to really consume pork. You can get yourself in trouble. You don't want to be in this kind of trouble. This is nasty trouble. You see a lot of this. I had one today. for you doctors out there, can I give you a clue about this one? They'll poop their pants with this one. They will actually poop their pants with this one. I'm almost done. This pastor came up from Virginia, and this is a great story. He's got Crohn's disease. This was, his sister-in-law is a famous radio host in California. She came, she was on the last lecture. She was the lady that had MS. And she was the one that was talking to Romney's wife about, I didn't have MS, I had mono. They thought this was MS. So she's part of this huge MS support group. She was the one that wanted to talk to Romney's wife, till I insulted her husband, and that probably took care of that. But Crohn's, cramping, low abdomen, loose stools, flare-ups, low residue health symptoms. He's 38. He's had this since he was 15. 2 blood transfusions. His blood's gone. Can't eat. Ulcer. Antibiotics. Medications for years. So I tested this guy out. I said, "You're full of worms." Went to Jamaica with his family when he was 15 on a mission trip. Picked up a parasite. He's 38 years old. His whole gut ached. He goes back to the doctor and says, "Look, in Virginia, you clowns have been working on me since I was 15. I got a parasite." The MD ran tests for parasites before taking the supplements, and all tests were negative. I had him pooping raisins with shells on it. He said, "You should see these things that are coming out of me." His stomach hurt this big, and it just did this. It just kept getting smaller as he kept going, smaller, on a tiny little spot, and it disappeared. He had a huge nest, whatever it was. He picked it up in Jamaica on a mission trip. This is important. This lady was in this week. Crohn's, see how they name things, cystitis. Her stomach's been sick, so they have Crohn's disease, proctitis, colitis, hemorrhoids, and diverticulitis. They don't miss a part. Let's just name a part. We'll charge you a lot of money. And cramping every day. Watch for things grabbing a hold of you. She had a parasite. She had a Giardia issue. She was in this week, and I know she's in the crowd. Cramping stopped in a second. I think I used oregano, some kind of herb on this. I use a different one. You got to check. You got to learn the muscle test so you can determine which one's which, or find some way to test. She's doing fine. She was in Monday. I was really glad she was in Monday. She said to me Monday, she's a recovering alcoholic, and when you want to get off alcohol, and she did that a long time ago, they'll just put you on drugs. So we'll move you to something else. So then when I want to get off the drugs, well, no, you want to stay on those because you might. So she takes an antidepressant. She's been on long. She said, "I want to stop this antidepressant." I said, "Why? Why do you want it? It helped you get off alcohol. You're doing good." She said, "Did you see the lady that they fished out of the Detroit River with their arms and legs and her head chopped off? Remember that? Who saw that in the paper? I'm not making this up, right? This is Detroit. I mean, we're used to this stuff. This stuff's it's like Halloween. Come on. Everybody's got chopped off heads and arms everywhere." She said, "Well, that was my friend. That was my friend's kid." So she calls me. They found her daughter or whatever with her arms and legs and her head chopped off and her boyfriend floating somewhere. And she said, "I didn't care." She said, "I didn't care." She said, "You're supposed to care about this kind of stuff. My emotions are dead." She said, "There's a hollow hole here. This meant nothing to me." And that's not right. I've had a ton of women come to me and say, "I got to, if it helps you, great." But I've had a ton of people say, one, it made me fat, and two, my emotions are dead. This is Monday. And he said, "Can you help me get off this? Because I didn't care that my friend's daughter had her head chopped off. It meant nothing." I can't make this stuff up. Monday. She had a bacteria, a bleeding ulcer. She had to grow the germ back and kill a parasite and a bacteria. Watch it. These people will come in, ask them if they poop. I had one today, one guy today. He said, I've had diarrhea for a month. It's bad. I said, did you poop your pants? He said, yes. Got one of these. There's another. I want you to see the names. Ulcerative colitis, diarrhea, 16 bowel movements a day, treated with medication. Got this from Jamaica, bacteria or parasite. 2 months later, she's pretty much fixed. I don't want to do Imuran. That's tough. Hydrocortisone enemas, Acifex and Zantac. Let's make sure we stop your digestion to make sure that you'll be in good shape. We'll give you a steroid enema and an immune suppressing medication. And you got insurance for this, though. This is free. This is what the people in Washington's brains look like. Their brains have been overrun with parasites because no person could make these decisions if they were thinking clear. It's impossible. Republicans and the Democrats, throw them all out. The hidden brain epidemic, tapeworms living inside of your brain. Got to be careful. You don't want a worm inside your head. I don't know how you're going to get a worm out of your head. Look, there's parasites you're never going to get rid of. You get these things in that deep, you will not get rid of these. You're going to have to actually open the head up and take them out with a pair of tweezers. You're going to have to pull these out of the head. The things I talked about for the doctors out there, you got to learn to find an intelligent testing procedure. I think I used a compilation of these on most of the patients. I work at my stomach. About every 2 years I have to deworm myself. I can tell exactly when I get that funny stab. People say, why is my kid's stomach so bad? He's got these terrible cramps in his stomach. Something's biting his gut. Something's biting. I felt like I was being stabbed with a screwdriver. I felt just like something was stabbing me with an ice pick. And it's not improperly washed fruits and vegetables, you know, the pets, etc. There's a lot of ways to get this, and you didn't do anything wrong to do it. All the Europeans understand this. The foreigners understand this. They make a habit of deworming themselves. They do it every couple of years. It's not a big deal. Back to this, the website. Dr. Jeff has a great lecture coming up. Raise your hand, Dr. Jeff. Waiting there patiently to answer all your questions. I want to thank all of you for coming.
Hello, I'm Dr. Levy. We have a video clip that's going to follow that's going to demonstrate very dramatically that some of the nutrients and additives that go in enriched foods might not be everything you think that they are. If you did not reach this video clip by seeing issue number 4 of Health E-Bites, you might want to check out that issue as well, and will help explain what you're going to see. We're going to look at an enriched cereal that says it has 100% of the daily requirements of vitamins and minerals, and demonstrate through magnetism that the form of iron inside this cereal is actually metallic filings. It should be clear then that this is not really a bioavailable form of iron, and in fact may well represent a toxic form of iron. Extrapolate this to all the other enriched foods, and then you can see that you might be getting a number of, quote, nutrients, unquote, that you might not want to take in on a daily basis. Okay, we have here a box of cereal that supposedly has 100% of the minimum daily requirements of vitamins and minerals, including, of course, iron. So let's go ahead and open it up. We have our flakes. Let's see. Okay. Now we're going to take a few flakes out. Put them on top of the water. And we'll be able to show with this strong magnet that there's enough metallic iron in here to steer this flake around the water. And if you think this isn't unusual, take a magnet and float anything else on water. The magnet will have no effect on it. Okay, having done that, we're going to go ahead and take this bowl of water, put it out of the way. Our next step, I'm now going to show you a demonstration in which we're actually going to pull these metallic iron filings out of the cereal, and you'll be able to see them very dramatically. We have a baggie here, regular ordinary baggie, and we have taped to the side of the baggie another one of these magnets, just like this one here, so that when we put together corn flakes and water and they're all mixed and crunched up together and we slosh it all around, you will eventually see black iron filings collect on top of this magnet. What we'll do first is we'll put the corn flakes, or the wheat flakes as the case may be, in the mixer with water and puree it fine so that all the iron filings that are contained in there can be easily pulled out of the solution by the magnet. Take the box out the way. We'll try to use most of the flakes so that we can get a maximum concentration of iron for you to see, although you'll be able to see them on just half the bag. Okay, we're now going to transfer this cereal dissolved in the water into the bag. We might put a little bit more water in to make it a little more fluid. And then we're going to slosh it around so that as much of the volume of this passes across the top of this magnet, and you'll see that these iron metallic filings will then gather. Okay, we slosh this around. Our magnet is right here. It's the same as this magnet. We see this green. Here's the green side of this magnet, and you see this enormous amount of metallic filings here. After this, I'm going to cut this out of the bag, and you'll be able to see these filings in even greater detail after I dry them. All right, now we're going to take an empty bowl and put this in here so that we don't make an enormous mess when I just take my scissors and cut this area out so we can look at these iron filings in a little greater detail. Okay, now I'm going to put a little water on this. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hair dryer and dry these out completely, and then pull the magnet off and drop them on a sheet of paper so we can see them in the final detail. Okay. Take the magnet away. Okay, now we have the filings on the paper. I'm going to take a magnet underneath the table and see how the filings stand up. We push them over from one side to the other. These are clearly metallic filings attracted by magnetism. By deduction, they're iron. So that concludes our demonstration. I think you'll agree this is a pretty dramatic demonstration that you can pull with magnetism metallic iron filings out of supposedly enriched cereal. Are metallic iron filings something you want to eat, either in cereal or in pastas or in other flours or other enriched foods? I don't think so. So, buyer beware. Or maybe buyer be aware. Bon appetit.